Hello and welcome back at the MSA channel. I'm Brian Blömer and I'm a partner and head of corporate services here at MSA. At MSA, we specialize in guiding international businesses through the complexities of expanding into various Asian markets, with particular focus on mainland China. Our expertise ensures smooth and compliant entry for foreign investors. Today, we're diving into an interesting topic, namely that of the wholly foreign-owned enterprise, or WFOE, the most popular investment vehicle for foreign businesses entering the Chinese market. Despite recent global economic challenges, China's long-term economic outlook and size of its domestic market still make it a very promising market for foreign investors. And the WFOE is the most interesting investment vehicle for those investors. We'll explore, among others, in this video, the incorporation process of a WFOE, the structural details and processes that you have to undergo in order to set up a company, and further implications thereof. A WFOE is a limited liability company in China that is entirely owned and financed by foreign investors. The structure provides foreign investors with full control and ownership over the entity, allowing for independent decision-making in several matters such as HR, finances, operations, and strategy, without the need for a local partner's input. This means you can directly conduct business activities in China, of course provided that they are within your business scope and not in any way restricted. The WFOE structure offers quite some versatility. Basically, we can divide that into three different types of WFOEs. Firstly, we have the consulting WFOE that can engage in consulting activities and other types of services, and is usually the simplest form of a WFOE to set up. Besides that, we also have a trading WFOE that can additionally engage in various activities such as trading, wholesale, retail, and franchising activities. And in order to perform these activities, you generally speaking also need to apply at the customs authority for an import and export license. And as a last layer, we have the manufacturing WFOE that, in addition to all the aforementioned, can also engage in R&D, manufacturing, and assembly activities. Whereas if you want to set up a manufacturing entity, there's an additional requirement for an environmental impact assessment or EPA prior to completing the WFOE registration process. Choosing the WFOE structure offers foreign investors various advantages. Among others, you have 100% control over the entity, meaning you fully decide upon the methods of equity contribution and the financing of this entity. Also, you don't need a local partner to operate a WFOE, meaning you keep complete independence for strategic decision-making, including elements such as HR, financing, and operations. Also, a WFOE, as opposed to a representative office, is able to independently engage in all types of commercial activities. So it can be engaged in services, consulting, trading, and manufacturing activities. Besides that, the WFOE allows you to fully independently hire without the help of a third party, both Chinese and local employees. And in addition, it offers better IP protection by having the ability to register your IP under the WFOE. And lastly, a notable advantage of having a WFOE that engages in commercial activity is the ability to issue fapiao towards your customers, meaning that you can invoice them in RMB without the hassle of dealing with foreign exchange for your customers. The establishment of a WFOE is subject to various laws and regulations and a number of key considerations that you have to make. Among those, there are the key structural decisions that we would like to highlight. These key structural decisions include the corporate governance positions, or otherwise known as the registered personnel or directorate positions of the company. Each company has to decide on a board of directors or an executive director, with the board of directors consisting out of a minimum of 3 or a maximum of 13 directors, where smaller companies usually choose to have a single executive director. Usually, one of the directors is also equal to the legal representative, although that is not per se necessary. The legal representative is the most important position for any WFOE, as that person is legally, under Chinese law, allowed to engage in any binding business activity on behalf of the company. In addition to that, you can appoint a general manager, which engages in more day-to-day business activities on behalf of the company and can be seen as the substitute for a day-to-day basis of the legal representative. And lastly, there is the supervisors, whose responsibility it is to supervise the conduct of the board of directors and legal representative and or general manager, and thus has to be a different person and cannot be the same as either of these. The second structural decision for the WFOE is the business scope, which is the list of business activities that the WFOE can legally engage in, and acting outside of that business scope can incur fines and penalties from the relevant authorities. When setting up the business scope, you have to make sure that the company's activities do not fall within the negative list, which are those areas in which foreign invested companies cannot engage in activities, as well as you have to ensure that it is aligned with the local catalog of business scope activities of the particular city that your WFOE is going to be incorporated in. Next up is the registered address of the WFOE, where it's important to note that each company must have a registered address, and there are several requirements for this registered address. Among others, it has to be a physical space that is suitable for commercial purposes, and no other company is registered there. So virtual addresses are, theoretically speaking, illegal under Chinese law. Then the fourth structural decision that a company has to make when setting up a WFOE is to decide upon the registered capital and total investment of the WFOE. Where registered capital is the equity contributions that the shareholder will make. And it's important to note that there are no minimum levels of required registered capital. However, the authorities do indicate that you have to pick a reasonable amount of registered capital, which is why we usually advise our clients to pick an amount that reflects around 6 to 12 months of operational cost of the WFOE. Next to that, you have to also indicate an amount of total investment, where the difference between the amount of registered capital and total investment is what we refer to as the financing gap, and that difference can be brought into the WFOE as a loan from its shareholders. The last structural decision that any company has to make for the establishment of a WFOE is the choice of a company name, where both you decide on an English and a Chinese company name. It's important to note that only the Chinese company name in China is legally valid and is used on any document ranging from contracts to your registration at the bank, etc. The structure of a Chinese company name is fairly straightforward and logical. It consists out of, firstly, your chosen name. Secondly, the industry in which you are active, which is usually defined by your business scope. The city in which your company is going to be incorporated, and lastly the legal form, which will be company limited or 有限公司 in Chinese. The establishment of a fully operational WFOE takes around 2 or 3 months to complete and consists out of several phases. The first phase, which we also refer to as the pre-registration or preparation phase, consists out of 2 important steps. Firstly, we have to obtain several documents from the shareholder and relevant registered personnel. In terms of the documents that we have to obtain from the shareholder, it's important to identify who is the shareholder and who has the signing authority on behalf of that shareholder within these documents. And then subsequently, we have to notarize and legalize these documents by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Chinese Embassy or Consulate abroad, or alternatively have to receive an apostille thereon. As this can be quite a time-consuming process, we advise our clients to start this early and at the same time work on the second part of the preparation phase, which is the structural decision making. Those structural decisions involve key elements that we highlighted before, including the company name, business scope, the governance positions or directorate positions, the registered capital and total investment, and the registered address that you're going to use. The second phase of the establishment of a WFOE is the so-called registration or legal application phase, which itself also consists out of 2 important parts. Depending on the city that you're applying to set up your WFOE in, there will be normally a pre-application, which can either be online or physically in person. During pre-application, you will generally speaking verify with the authorities several key elements of the intended WFOE, such as the structural decisions that you've made earlier, and you'll provide scans of relevant documents such as those from the shareholder, as well as lease agreements, which will then be verified by the authorities, after which the official documents for the application of the incorporation of the WFOE will be issued for signature to you. Then the second part of the legal application phase concerns the actual application for the business license with the Administration for Market Regulation. That will normally handle your application in 5 to 10 working days, and if there are no further questions, they will issue your business license. Now, having your business license means that your company legally exists, but Unfortunately, at that point, it cannot operate yet, which means we go into the last phase, which is the post-registration, or also known as the operationalization phase of a WFOE, which consists out of various important steps. At this point, among others, you will carve the relevant company chops, which are the official seals that make any document legally binding on behalf of the WFOE that you established. You will have several company chops that you will obtain, including the company seal, finance seal, Fapiao seal, and the legal representative seal. After obtaining these relevant seals, the next step would be to apply to open your bank accounts. Usually that application consists out of opening at least 2 bank accounts, notably your RMB basic account, which shall be your current account used for any regular current account, domestic and international transactions, as well as a capital account that serves to receive the capital from the shareholder, which is subsequently then converted to RMB to the RMB basic account for daily usage. In addition, usually we will also register the company with the State Administration of Foreign Exchange to be able to engage in international transactions at this point. In addition to that, every WFOE has the obligation within 30 days of its incorporation to start relevant tax registrations. Those tax registrations include, among others, the registration with the National and Local Tax Bureau for the tax identification number, the registration as either a general VAT or small-scale taxpayer, and the application for Fapiao, which are the local Chinese invoices in case you want to engage in commercial activities with local domestic Chinese entities. Usually, for most companies that want to hire employees, it also includes the application for Social Security and housing fund accounts for the company in order to be able to make Social Security and housing fund contributions. Now, this would normally mean that the company is fully operational, but depending on your scope of business activities, there are various other licenses that you may need to apply for. Among others, if you are engaging in trading and notably import and export, you will need to apply at the Customs Bureau for an import and export license, which is a process that generally speaking takes around 2 or 3 weeks to complete. In addition, depending on your scope of business activities, there may be various other licenses that you will need to obtain in order to engage in all activities that you want. Examples could be a food distribution license, an alcohol distribution license, licenses to be engaged in the sale of medical products or the sale of pesticide or chemicals, and a whole other range of various licenses that you might need to obtain depending on your business scope activities. Establishing a WFOE in China provides unparalleled control and market access, but it requires meticulous planning and navigation of key and tricky regulatory requirements. Understanding the different types of WFOEs, the key considerations to establishing a WFOE, and the incorporation process are key for foreign investors to succeed. At MSA, our experts support you throughout the entire life cycle of your company incorporation, and we bridge the gap between international investors and local market knowledge. For more information, or if you want tailored support, please visit our website or contact us directly.